The eThekwini Municipality says power has been restored to most parts of the metro after an explosion at a substation. The blast last night at the Klaarwater substation left about 50% of Durban residents in the dark. Officials say technicians are still working on restoring power to the rest of the affected areas. So let's get you an update from eThekwini's head of electricity. Maxwell Mthembu joins us via our video link this morning. Maxwell, thanks for coming on so early. Good to see that you have power in your area. Perhaps let's begin with the areas that are still experiencing outages this morning.
Good morning, Michelle, and good morning to the viewers at home. Yes, it is true that we had an outage last night in eThekwini. This happened after a very strong wind that took place within our areas or in the same vicinity, in the area where there's the Klaarwater substation. But the problem was not at Klaarwater. The problem actually we discovered later, just before we restored the power supply, that it happened at Shallcross. There's a line that leaves Klaarwater to Shallcross. It's a 132 kV line or a high voltage line. So that line actually, it tripped or snipped out of the tower and it fell on the ground. This line one. So that caused that explosion that was seen on the visual last night. So the power then went off the entire, about 40% of Ethekwini was affected. We lost about 600 megawatts of power at that particular time. So then we were able to restore the power supply after isolating that area to the entire areas, which was outside, every area in the western area outside Shallcross. So we still kept Shallcross off and the surrounding areas, but I want to believe that it's just been restored even now. We're busy restoring some of the areas that are still off at the moment in the same area through our low or medium voltage network. So we are restoring power supplies in the area at the moment, Michelle.
So
but all others were restored last night. 95% was restored last night, just before 10 o'clock.
So given what you've described as the cause of the outage, as the cause of the explosion, Maxwell, I take it that no foul play is expected?
I wouldn't say there's any foul play at this stage because we know there was strong winds and there was lightning that happening at night, and all those weather conditions are actually adverse to our network, with the one that is exposed to that kind of environment. So I wouldn't really say that. But we're doing investigations. I will speak only on a technical point of view, knowing what happens on the type of network. So all other things, I wouldn't want to put them into play right now. Actually, I don't even think it's in there.
I imagine that some residents would have experienced perhaps surges in power as power was being restored, that they may have been impacted in a particular way at the moment of the outage itself. What kind of reports are you getting from residents, if they've come in yet, if you've received any at all yet, about how they were impacted at the moment of the explosion and perhaps when power was restored?
To tell the truth, the moment the power went off, we sent messages throughout our social media environments, and we told all the residents that treat it as life and try to switch off all the breakers where possible, reduce whatever that you can. So most people actually adhere to that call. And I can tell you now, up to this fire, I haven't had any of such claims or cries that some searches came back and some destruction happened to the appliances. There's none that I've heard of. I'm not saying there's none at all, but none I've heard of.
Do you foresee, even though you are now getting power supply back up and running, do you foresee any perhaps long-term implications at this Klaarwater substation in the weeks ahead?
Actually, the Klaarwater substation was not affected in any way. It's just that because of the protection system, that if it happens on the land, it comes back to Klaarwater substation. So that's where the explosion was observed and was heard. But it's not a problem at Klaarwater. The problem happened at Shallcross. So we're not expecting any more problems at Klaarwater. Remember, Klaarwater is where we get our power from Eskom, and then we distribute it via our high voltage network within eThekwini Municipality. So there's no problem at Klaarwater. The problem happened at Shallcross, but was cleared at Klaarwater. So Klaarwater is 100%, but Shallcross is running at one line at the moment. The other line is still off. We're going to be starting the repairs this morning to try to bring it back up to speed as well.
And what can you tell residents about when we expect power to be fully restored, Maxwell? How long will that take?
It should be this morning. If it's not done last night or early morning of this morning of today, then it should be just this morning, just before 12 o'clock. We should be able to having everybody back on.
All right, Maxwell Mthembu, eThekwini's Municipality's head of electricity. Thanks very much indeed for that update.